The tragedy of Gayle King is that the world only allows her to be strong. We remember the warm smile every morning on CBS Mornings, the professional calm carried to an absolute degree, the trustworthy voice that millions of Americans hear every day. What we do not see is the unspoken pain behind that professional facade, a wound carried from the night she discovered her husband was having an affair with her own friend, right in her house, on her towel that no studio lights or multi-million-dollar contracts could ever completely erase. She appears before the camera with an unshakable composure because journalism had become the only place where life felt more orderly than the chaos waiting outside the studio. But beyond the stage lights, that control is far harder to hold. The woman the entire country trusted every morning was once the person lying in the garage at midnight, checking whether her husband had just slipped out somewhere and come back. The woman whom director Ava DuVernay called a model of calm once stood in front of the bedroom door and saw a female friend hiding behind it, naked, hastily wrapping herself in Gayle's own towel, while her husband ran out with a panicked expression. The icon who once made art, Kelly lose control on camera as he stood up screaming, fist raised, yet she never flinched, addressing him by his real name Robert in a voice calm to the point of coldness. That same icon, only a few months later, would be photographed in a state of complete collapse. In 2020, after a deceptively edited clip spread online, Gayle King received death threats. She could not sleep for 2 consecutive nights. She had to move with a security team. Oprah Winfrey, her closest friend for nearly 5 decades, had to go on television and say 5 words no one wants to hear about Gayle King. She is not doing well. The morning smile never tells the whole story. How can a woman who makes millions of people feel safe every morning when her own life has never truly been safe? At the age of 71, Gayle King still has not found the great love of her life. She still returns alone to her apartment after every broadcast. She still describes herself as alert and ready for love, more than 30 years after her only marriage ended in betrayal. The woman whom Oprah calls the friend everyone deserves to have still has not found the life partner she herself deserves. Before we go deeper into the extraordinary journey of Gayle King, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like for Gayle King. To understand the strength that has captivated all of America, we must go back to the moment when the little girl Gayle King first learned that she was not like anyone around her. Gayle King was born on December 28, 1954, in Chevy Chase, Maryland, a quiet and largely white suburb just outside the capital, Washington, D.C. She was the eldest of 4 sisters. Her father, Emmett Scott King, was an electrical engineer working for the federal government, a quiet, serious man who believed in education and hard work. Her mother, Peggy King, was a full-time homemaker who kept the household running in order. It was a middle-class African-American home with structure, expectations, and love expressed more through discipline than through hugs. Then in 1960, that stability was uprooted. When Gayle had just turned 6, Emmett's job took the entire family out of the United States to Ankara, the capital of Turkey, a Muslim country on the other side of the Atlantic, where the Turkish language, Ottoman culture, and religion were completely alien to a black little girl from suburban Maryland. No one in Ankara looked like her. No one spoke English the way she did. No one understood where she came from. 5 years in Ankara, from 1960 to 1965, from age 6 to 11, were long enough to completely change the way a child sees the world, yet not long enough for the child to truly belong there. In Ankara, little Gayle learned to observe, to read a room before entering, to adapt to whatever environment she was placed in. Skills that decades later would make her one of the sharpest interviewers on American television. But Ankara also etched into her something else, quieter and more persistent. The feeling of always being on the outside, looking in. When the King family returned to Maryland in 1965, the 11-year-old girl discovered that she no longer fully belonged to the old place either. 5 years away from America had changed her too much to fit back into the world she had left. And that was the paradox that would haunt her for decades afterward. In 1972, Gayle entered the University of Maryland, College Park, majoring in psychology and sociology. Years later, she revealed the reason with her characteristic wit. She chose psychology because she liked giving other people advice. It sounds like a joke, but beneath it lies a deeper truth she perhaps had not yet recognized at the time. From very early on, Gayle placed herself in the role of the listener, the caregiver, the one who looks after others before herself, a pattern that would shape and sometimes imprison her throughout her life. In her friendship with Oprah Winfrey, in her 11-year marriage to William Bumpus, in 4 decades of journalism. There was another wound that also formed in those years, smaller but sharper. Gayle's grandmother once said something to her that she would remember forever until she stood before photographer Yu Tsai in a swimsuit on a Mexican beach nearly 6 decades later. Mother Nature was not as kind to you as to the other girls. A remark from an adult, perhaps without malice, yet it lodged in the mind of a young girl and stayed there for decades, whispering every time she looked in the mirror, every time she stepped on the scale, and shared the number 172 pounds with the whole world on Instagram in October 2020, every time she wondered why she was still alone after more than 30 years. In 1976, when Gayle graduated from the University of Maryland at age 21 and stepped into the world of television with her first job at WTOP-TV in Washington, D.C., she carried 2 things: an extraordinary adaptability forged in Ankara, where a black little girl had to learn how to survive in a world where no one resembled her, and a deep need to belong, to be loved, to be seen for who she truly was, a need that her childhood away from home had never fully filled. In 1976, the television station WJZ-TV in Baltimore was one of the few places in the American media industry where 2 young black women could coexist and work together without being janitors. Gayle King, 21, freshly graduated from the University of Maryland, had just been hired into the lowest position in the television hierarchy. Production assistant, the person who made coffee, photocopied scripts, and ran errands for the people who actually appeared on camera. Oprah Winfrey, born January 29, 1954, less than a year older than Gayle, held the position of evening news anchor at the same station and was the first black woman to sit in that chair in Baltimore. The 2 knew each other's names but were not yet close, belonging to 2 different levels in the same building, both literally and figuratively. Then a snowstorm hit Baltimore. Gayle could not get home. The roads were white, cars could not move. Oprah did something so simple it was almost ordinary. She invited the production assistant to stay overnight at her place. That night, in Oprah's small apartment, 2 black women not yet 22 talked until morning, about work, about family, about men, about fears, about ambitions, about everything that 2 young black women in the media industry of 1976 had no one else to talk to about. When the sun rose over snow-covered Baltimore, a friendship had begun that neither of them knew would last nearly half a century. The snowstorm forced 2 strangers to stay together, and that is how real friendship often begins. Not by choice, but by circumstance. But keeping it through nearly 50 years, through a wealth gap from a few $1,000s to billions, through divorce, scandal, rumors, and death threats, that was a conscious choice repeated every day. Years later, they explained that they stayed close because they shared the same philosophy about people, about how to approach life and work. In October 2024, in a conversation with Melinda French Gates, Oprah said they never make a major decision in life without asking the other's opinion. Oprah once described Gayle in front of Barbara Walters' camera, eyes welling up. "She is the mother I never had, the sister everyone wants, the friend everyone deserves to have." It sounds like a fairy tale about friendship, but fairy tales have no price, and this friendship has an enormous cost that few people see. The first cost is identity. For decades, ever since Oprah became a national television phenomenon with The Oprah Winfrey Show in the late 1980s, Gayle was reduced by the world to 4 words: Oprah's best friend. Not journalist Gayle King, not the host of 18 years at WFSB Hartford, but only Oprah's best friend. Gayle once said, "I never saw myself standing in Oprah's shadow. I saw myself standing in her light." That sentence sounds confident, yet the very fact that she had to say it on camera proves the shadow existed, that enough people looked at her and saw only a reflection of Oprah. The second cost is even more painful: her romantic life. Rumors that Gayle and Oprah had a romantic relationship clung to them for decades. On the Call Her Daddy podcast in May 2026 with Alex Cooper, Gayle admitted the rumor directly affected her dating life. She once begged Oprah to go on The Oprah Winfrey Show and publicly deny it, but Oprah did not think it necessary. Gayle said bluntly, "Getting a Saturday night date is hard enough already, and when people think we're gay, how is that supposed to work?" If we were, we would just say so. Oprah, for her part, believed people perhaps were not used to seeing two women with a bond that genuine. Both views are correct, yet only one person paid the price in her dating life, and that person was Gayle. The third cost is the most subtle: loneliness inside the closest relationship. Oprah once said, "Gayle is happier for my success than I am for myself. You cannot out-happy her." It sounds extraordinarily beautiful. But when a person spends a lifetime being happier for others than for herself, when her greatest quality is the ability to be happy on behalf of someone else, then who is asking whether Gayle King is truly happy? Or does everyone simply assume she is fine because she always looks fine? The girl who never belonged anywhere in Ankara finally found someone who made her belong, yet belong in a way the world continually misinterpreted, continually labeled, and continually used to shrink her into a supporting version of someone else. Oprah Winfrey is not the villain in this story. She is the co-creator of Gayle's public identity in both the best and worst senses, the greatest source of strength and at the same time the longest shadow Gayle had to walk through so the world could see her in her own sunlight. In 1981, Gayle was 27, her friendship with Oprah already solid, but she was searching for a different kind of love, the kind that even the deepest friendship cannot replace. She met William G. Bumpus, a young lawyer, and for the first time in her life, the girl who had never belonged anywhere believed she had finally found a place to belong. On June 20, 1982, Gayle King, 27 years old, married William G. Bumpus, a young lawyer who would become Assistant Attorney General of the state of Connecticut. On paper, it was the perfect marriage: a news anchor wed to a respected attorney, two parallel careers, a house in Connecticut, and America's closest friendship with Oprah Winfrey as the foundation. In May 1986, daughter Kirby was born. Less than a year later, in April 1987, son William Jr. arrived. Gayle was 32, mother of two children 11 months apart, simultaneously anchoring the news at WFSB-TV Hartford and working as a special correspondent for the Oprah Winfrey Show. She balanced the two worlds with the precision of someone who had been adapting since childhood in Ankara, and she believed everything was solid. Sitting in front of Alex Cooper's microphone on the Call Her Daddy podcast that aired May 27, 2026, Gayle looked back on that period and said with a voice still genuinely surprised, "People say a wife always knows, but I swear to God I didn't know. I really didn't know. It's not that we never argued, but I never thought things were bad enough that he was sleeping with someone else." That was not denial. That was the genuine naivete of a woman who believed in her marriage. And that very naivete made what happened on the night of June 24, 1990, more devastating than any script could invent. That night, Gayle was not supposed to be home. She was on a work trip, but the flight was canceled at the last minute. She returned to Connecticut earlier than expected, bringing 4-year-old Kirby and 3-year-old William Jr. When she reached the door, the first thing she noticed was that the alarm system was on. Gayle recounted on Call Her Daddy, "Weird, he's home alone, he's a grown man, he never turns the alarm on." Before she could think further, William ran out of the bedroom wrapped in a towel, face a secession, saying, "There's someone in the house." Gayle didn't believe him, thought he was talking about a burglar, and began searching the house. Two small children were right there in the same house. And then she found her. Behind a door, a woman was crouched, hastily wrapped in a towel, Gayle's towel. That woman was not a stranger. She was a friend of both husband and wife, the person they played tennis with every weekend. Gayle looked at the woman and said something that years later she herself admitted sounded pitiful to the point of heartbreak. "I thought we were friends, not anger, not screaming." Gayle King's first reaction in the most painful moment of her life was injury to the friendship. And the reply was even more brutal than the betrayal itself. "I never liked you." Those 6 words cut deeper than any image she saw that night. In the YouTube episode The OG Chronicles years later, when Oprah recalled this moment, Gayle did not cry. She only fell silent and then admitted that the line, "I thought we were friends," looking back, sounded truly pathetic. But that was Gayle King in her purest form. Even when betrayed savagely, her first reaction was still to put the relationship ahead of her own pain. The pattern formed in Ankara, reinforced in the friendship with Oprah, and now laid bare both her strength and her fragility on the floor of her own master bedroom. In 2016, Vanity Fair asked her which living person she most despised. Gayle answered, "Not a big fan of the woman I caught naked with my ex-husband on June 24, 1990, at 9:16 p.m., but I don't remember the details." She remembered the exact date, hour, and minute, yet said, "I don't remember the details." That humor was the armor Gayle spent years forging, but on that 1990 night there was no armor at all. Gayle did not divorce immediately. This detail reveals more about her than any Emmy. After that night, she went to marriage counseling and tried for 3 more years, from 1990 to 1993, for Kirby and William Jr., for the marriage commitment, because she wanted to believe people could change. But those 3 years turned her into someone she did not recognize. Gayle recounted on Call Her Daddy, "I realized he wasn't really changing. But I was becoming a bitter woman. I'd go out to the garage at midnight and feel the hood of the car to see if it was hot. I'd go through his phone. I became a detective in my own house." Then she discovered he was cheating again. But the decisive moment was not finding new evidence. The decisive moment was when she looked in the mirror and thought, "I don't want to live like this. I don't like the person I'm becoming." Gayle King divorced William Bumpus not because he was terrible, but because she was becoming someone she did not want to be. She left to save herself from herself. In 1993, the divorce was officially finalized. Gayle was 38, 2 children under 7, alone. In 2006, 13 years later, when Will Smith sat across from her on the XM satellite radio show, Gayle answered in a voice so gentle it was almost cheerful. "I was married to a cheater. I went to marriage counseling. I've been divorced since 1993, so I've healed completely. I'm not bitter. I'm fine. I'm really fine." The first time she said that publicly, and it did not sound like the truth. It sounded like someone trying to convince herself the wound had healed while her hand was still covering the scar. The betrayal of the night of June 24, 1990, left a distrust that no studio light could illuminate, and more than 30 years of singleness afterward is the quietest evidence. In 1993, when the divorce decree officially took effect, Gayle King, 38, walked out of the courthouse with custody of the children and a reality simple to the point of cruelty. From now on, everything was hers alone. Kirby was 7, William Jr. 6, and every morning she had to wake before dawn to get the 2 children ready for school, then drive to WFSB-TV Hartford in time for air, and every evening she had to come home, check homework, cook, put the children to bed, then lie alone in the Connecticut house, where every corner still echoed the memory of the night of June 24, 1990. Her profession was listening, giving advice, connecting people to one another. But when the studio lights went out, there was no one to listen to her. No spouse to discuss the children with at midnight. No one to hold her hand when Kirby had a fever or William Jr. was bullied at school. Only Oprah Winfrey on the other end of a phone hundreds of miles away. Oprah, who would later tell People magazine in 2019, "I've never seen anyone better at being a mother. Basically, she raised them by herself. She was always present for them, and she knew the boundary between being a friend and being a mother." But there is a detail few people know that reveals more about Gayle King's character than any award. Despite the betrayal, she chose to maintain an amicable relationship with William Bumpus for the children's sake. She said on radio, "The most important thing is that people who have children together get along with each other." Not only get along, she also supported William in earning his law degree at Yale University, even after the divorce, a detail William himself confirmed in a statement sent to TMZ in May 2026. "It was Gayle who encouraged and supported me in completing my Yale law degree, and it was Gayle who chose from the beginning to co-parent successfully with me. The woman who caught her husband naked with her friend helped that same husband earn a law degree from one of the most prestigious schools in the world. That was not weakness. It was the conscious choice of a woman who refused to let pain turn her into a bitter person. She left the marriage to save herself from becoming the woman who felt car hoods, and she would not let hatred turn her into another distorted version of herself. Meanwhile, her career continued in a strange state that few in the media industry ever experience, present everywhere, yet never recognized under her own name. At WFSB Hartford, she was the most respected news anchor at the station, holding the position for 18 years from 1981 to 1999. building credibility day by day with patience and without scandal. But to the rest of America, she was the special correspondent for the Oprah Winfrey Show, Oprah's best friend, the name that always stood behind another name. In 1997, she had her first chance to step out of that orbit. Her own talk show called The Gayle King Show, airing nationally through CBS's iMark Entertainment. It was canceled after exactly one season because of low ratings. That failure hurt not only for itself. It hurt because in the eyes of the media, it confirmed exactly what the skeptics had always said. She was famous only because of Oprah. On her own, she could not stand. In 1999, she left WFSB and moved to become an editor at O, the Oprah magazine, Oprah's newly launched magazine. The career continued to grow, but again inside the orbit of the same star. Then came the radio program, The Gayle King Show on XM satellite radio, then a talk show on the OWN, Oprah Winfrey Network. Every platform tied to one name, and that name was not Gayle King. For nearly 20 years, from 1993 to 2011, Gayle existed in a state that perhaps only she fully understood. Having a career but no independent professional identity, having income but no separate reputation, having a platform but a platform that always carried someone else's name, having the deepest friendship anyone could wish for, yet that very friendship being the reason the world never looked at her with her own eyes. The girl who never belonged anywhere in Ankara now belonged somewhere, but that somewhere carried someone else's name. And she was the second part of the phrase Oprah and Gayle that never became Gayle and Oprah. Then in 2012, at age 57, when most of her generational peers had long settled or retired, the final opportunity arrived. CBS invited her to co-anchor CBS This Morning with Charlie Rose and Norah O'Donnell. For the first time in a career spanning more than 3 decades, Gayle King had a national stage with Oprah Winfrey's name nowhere on the logo. In January 2012, Gayle King, 57, sat in the co-anchor chair of CBS This Morning for the first time with Charlie Rose and Norah O'Donnell. At an age when most of her generational colleagues had long been established, she was only beginning on the national stage. 36 years in the profession, 18 years at a local station, 1 canceled talk show, nearly 2 decades called Oprah's best friend, all of it to reach this chair. Her interview style was something no journalism school could teach, sharp yet empathetic, direct yet warm. She never attacked the interview subject, yet never allowed them to escape. She asked the hardest question in the room, in the softest voice in the room, and that combination lowered the other person's defenses long enough for them to say the truth they had not intended to say. That skill was forged from 18 years at a local station where no producer wrote the questions in advance, from a psychology degree at the University of Maryland, where she learned to read people before she learned to read a teleprompter, and from the lived experience of betrayal, where she learned that the most important thing is not the words people say, but the silence between those words. For the first time, American audiences began calling her Gayle King of CBS rather than Oprah's friend. Then in November 2017, Charlie Rose was fired amid a series of sexual harassment allegations. The program lost half its brand overnight, and Gayle had to go on air the next morning in the void her colleague left, looking straight into the camera and telling America that she was both heartbroken and angry. The familiar pattern. When everything around collapsed, Gayle King was the one who held everything together. With the calm forged from the night she'd discovered her husband's affair through the mornings of raising children alone. But the true peak arrived in March 2019. After the Lifetime documentary Surviving R. Kelly, R&B singer R. Kelly was indicted on 10 serious sexual abuse charges. CBS This Morning secured the first exclusive interview, 80 minutes of direct confrontation. What happened in the studio that day became one of the most iconic television moments of the 21st century. Midway through the interview, R. Kelly completely lost control, leapt to his feet, screaming, "I'm fighting for my life. You're killing me with this garbage." Fist raised, face contorted, his tall frame casting a shadow over the 64-year-old woman seated below. Gayle King did not move, did not flinch, did not panic, did not look to the crew for help. She sat still, back straight, eyes locked on him, and when the storm passed, she called him by his real name in a voice calm almost, to the point of gentleness. Robert. She later said that in that moment, she quickly assessed whether he was truly dangerous, decided he was not, and continued. But the world did not see the calculation inside her head. The world saw the image. A 64-year-old black woman sitting motionless before a man who was screaming and threatening. And she was the one in control of the situation. She was the one with the power. She was the one he had to answer to. In the historical context of America, where black women have endured centuries of being yelled at, threatened, and forced into silence, that image carried symbolic power far beyond any interview. Director Ava DuVernay wrote on Twitter, "The most striking thing is how direct, clear, and unadorned Gayle King's questions were. She asked exactly what most of us would ask if we were sitting in that chair. It's crazy that that is so rare." Activist DeRay McKesson called her unflappable. PBS correspondent Yamiche Alcindor called it a masterclass in interviewing. And if you pull the camera far enough back, you see the entire journey. The woman who once sat in the garage at midnight feeling car hoods because she had lost control of her own life, now sitting before a human-shaped storm and not moving an inch. 29 years between those two images. From the bedroom floor in Connecticut in 1990 to the CBS studio in 2019, is the complete journey of a woman who learned to turn pain into calm and betrayal, into composure. That same year Time magazine named Gayle King to its list of the 100 most influential people in the world, under her own name, not in the Oprah section, not with a caption calling her someone's best friend. Her CBS contract was raised to at least $11 million a year, later increased further to $15 million, making her one of the highest-paid journalists in America. She has won 3 Emmy Awards, the Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Journalism, the Gracie Award in 2008, the Matrix Award in 2010, and was honored by Variety at Power of Women in 2017 for her contributions to the nonprofit SEO Scholars that supports underprivileged students. The girl who never belonged anywhere in Ankara, the single mother who raised 2 children in a house echoing with betrayal, the host called Oprah's best friend for 2 decades, now stood at the absolute peak of American journalism on her own merit. But titles and salaries are never perfect armor. On January 26, 2020, a Sikorsky S-76B helicopter crashed into a hillside in Calabasas, California, in dense fog. Kobe Bryant, 41, his daughter Gianna, 13, and 7 others were killed. America sank into mourning. Television networks went dark, social media overflowed with candles and flowers. An entire generation that had grown up watching Kobe Bryant play basketball was grieving the man they had considered immortal. In the midst of that atmosphere, Gayle King conducted a long multi-topic interview with Lisa Leslie, a WNBA star and longtime close friend of Kobe. The interview covered many aspects of Bryant's life and legacy, but in one section, Gayle asked Lisa Leslie whether Kobe's legacy was complicated by the 2003 sexual assault case in Colorado, the case that was later dismissed when the accuser refused to testify in court, and the 2 sides reached a civil settlement in 2005. It was a journalist question, the kind any serious reporter would pose in a comprehensive interview about the legacy of a public figure. But CBS took exactly that portion, cut it into a short clip stripped of all context, and posted it to the network's social media accounts on February 4. The clip went viral within hours, and the storm arrived at a speed Gayle King could not prepare for. Social media exploded. Gayle was called a defamer of the dead, attacked in character, cursed in every language the internet could produce. But the worst did not come from anonymous accounts. It came from Snoop Dogg, one of the world's most famous rappers with tens of millions of followers. Snoop Dogg posted a video on Instagram, looking straight into the camera, cursing Gayle King in the crudest language, and appearing to threaten her life before millions of viewers. That video was not an anonymous Twitter comment. It was a globally famous man looking straight into the lens, aiming straight at a 65-year-old woman. A few days later, Oprah Winfrey appeared on NBC's Hoda and Jenner and Friends and said the 5 words no one wants to hear about Gayle King. She is not doing well. Oprah continued, she has to travel with a security team. She feels completely under attack. She hasn't slept in 2 days. The calmest woman on American television, the one who had sat motionless while R. Kelly screamed only months earlier, was now afraid for her own life. The microphone that had once been her safest place, the place where life had order, the place where she controlled everything, had become the source of danger. The familiar, haunting pattern reappeared. What Gayle trusted turned around and betrayed her. Her husband had betrayed her inside her own house. Her friend had betrayed her with the words, "I never liked you," And now the American public, the people she had served every morning for years, had turned around and threatened to kill her for an interview question that they themselves would have asked if they were sitting in that chair. Gayle blamed CBS for the way the clip was cut and posted out of context, but she never blamed the question. She believed it was the right question, asked the right way, inside a far broader interview that social media audiences never watched. Snoop Dogg later deleted the video and publicly apologized. "I was raised better than that. I'm sorry for the language I used and for being disrespectful." Gayle accepted the apology with a short, professional statement. But an apology does not erase 2 sleepless nights, does not erase the real fear of having to move with bodyguards, does not erase the feeling that at any moment, any question, no matter how correct, could turn her from the most trusted person into a hunted target. A few weeks later, at Oprah's 2020 Vision Tour event, Gayle stood before an audience and spoke about what had happened in a voice listeners could still hear trembling. "It really shook me. I always try to operate under the principle of do no harm. That was definitely a lesson, and it was very painful." Then she continued, and her voice hardened. "But I put on my fight face and my big girl pants, because I never forget who I am, what I believe I am, and what my intention is. I'm fine." The second time she said that sentence publicly, and this time it did not sound like the self-persuasion of 2006 on the radio with Will Smith. This time it sounded like armor, like a woman deliberately putting on a suit of iron before stepping outside, because she knew the world outside could kill her. She was fine not because she was truly fine, but because she chose to be fine, because the alternative was to collapse, and Gayle King does not allow herself to collapse in front of the camera. If there is a single piece of evidence that Gayle King has lived her life the right way, that evidence is not 3 Emmy Awards, not a $15 million contract, not a Time magazine cover. That evidence is Kirby Bumpus and William Bumpus Jr., the 2 children she brought home from the hospital less than a year apart, raised almost entirely alone from the ages of 7 and 6, in the Connecticut house that still echoed with the memory of the night of June 24, 1990, grew up into 2 adults any mother in the world would cry with pride over. Kirby Bumpus, born in May 1986, the firstborn daughter Gayle carried at 31 while still building her career at WFSB Hartford. Graduated from Stanford University in 2008 with a double bachelor's degree in psychology and human biology, then earned a master's degree at Columbia University. At Kirby's Stanford graduation, the keynote speaker was Oprah Winfrey, her godmother, the woman who had been with Gayle since the Baltimore snowstorm of 1976. Kirby later worked in the administration of President Barack Obama, then moved into public health and social impact. Like her mother, she chose a profession of serving others before thinking of herself. The pattern passed from Ankara through Baltimore, through Hartford to the next generation, without anyone having to teach it in words. In 2020, Kirby married Virgil Miller, a longtime friend of Oprah's. Oprah herself had introduced them. The wedding took place at Oprah Winfrey's home. And here once again the Oprah paradox appeared in the most private moment of Gayle's family. Her daughter's wedding was held at her best friend's house, not at her own. The groom was a friend of her best friend. The bride's godmother was her best friend. Not because Oprah was invading, but because they truly were family. The boundary between King and Winfrey had long since dissolved. In September 2021, Kirby and Virgil welcomed their first son, Luca. Gayle announced the news on CBS Mornings in a voice trembling with happiness. "I've wanted to be a grandmother for a very long time, and it's really special when you see your own child become a parent. I'm crazy about that little boy." Then she added with her characteristic smile, "I was holding the baby and Kirby said, 'Mom, you have to support the baby's neck.' And I thought, oh, right, actually Mom knows how to do this." In May 2024, Kirby gave birth to their second child, a daughter named Grayson. Gayle shared on Instagram, "Grandma's favorite granddaughter, Grayson, has arrived." In the months after Luca was born, Gayle and Kirby recreated a photograph from 1986. The original showed Gayle with her mother Peggy, Gayle holding newborn Kirby. The new photograph showed Kirby with Gayle, Kirby holding newborn Luca. 3 generations of women, same pose, same gaze, 35 years apart. Silent evidence that some things are passed from mother to daughter not by genes, but by the way you hold a child in your arms. William Bumpus Jr., born April 28, 1987, Gayle's only son. Her favorite son, as she always jokes, because of course she has only one son, William Jr. Graduated from Duke University in 2009 with a bachelor's degree in psychology and Asian and Middle Eastern studies, then earned a degree at Stanford. He did not enter media like his mother. He chose finance, becoming managing partner at Phoenix Rising Capital and Concrete Rose Capital, building his own career in California, far from his mother's studio lights. In 2024, he married Elise Smith. In August 2022, Gayle posted photos of the two of them walking from Central Park to Harlem, eating French-style crepes with caramelized bananas at Boulevard Bistro, walking 4.5 hours round trip, no cameras rolling, no production team, just a mother and son strolling the streets of New York in the August sun. She wrote, "I love this kid. Simple almost to the point of ordinary, and that very ordinariness is the most precious thing Gayle King has." Now, if you step far enough back to see the whole picture, the woman whose husband betrayed her with her best friend on the floor of her own bedroom raised 2 children into Stanford, Duke, and Columbia graduates almost entirely alone while building a career from a local station to the national peak. The woman whose grandmother said Mother Nature was not kind to her now has 2 grandchildren who call her with laughter, but this narrative refuses to idealize. The children's success does not erase more than 30 years of loneliness. Every evening after CBS Mornings ends, after the studio lights go out, after the crew goes home, Gayle King still returns alone to her Manhattan penthouse. Grandchildren bring joy, but a grandmother's joy is not the love of a life partner, and that is the thing she has never found again since 1993. There is one final detail worth noting. In 2024, after Gayle appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit, William Bumpus Sr., the man who had betrayed her 34 years earlier, publicly offered praise. "I treasure you more and more as time goes by when I see our extraordinary children and grandchildren." 34 years after the night of June 24, 1990, the man who once ran out of the bedroom wrapped in a towel finally saw the value of the woman he had lost. Too late to change anything, but perhaps enough to heal one last wound. Successful children, grandchildren born, career at its peak, the ex-husband finally learning to appreciate. But there is one battle Gayle King has fought longer than the battle with loneliness, longer than the battle to escape Oprah's shadow, longer than the battle to build a career from a local station to the national peak, the battle with her own body. And that battle began with a remark from her grandmother that she carried for nearly 6 decades. "Mother Nature was not as kind to you as to the other girls." Gayle has never hidden her complicated relationship with the scale. She joined Weight Watchers multiple times in her life, often with Oprah, 2 best friends counting calories together the way they counted decades. In October 2020, in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, she posted a photo of the scale on Instagram, the number 172 pounds clearly visible, and wrote, "Crisis. The doctor said my ideal weight is 163 pounds. That's not happening anytime soon. Blame Corona isolation and the Halloween candy corn I just bought." In January 2023, she stepped on the scale again in front of the camera. 167.6 pounds, still short of the 160 goal. In 2026, when her face looked noticeably thinner, social media erupted with rumors that she was using GLP-1 weight loss drugs, what the internet called Ozempic face. She said she works out 5 to 6 days a week. But no matter how she explained it, her body once again became a public topic of discussion that she could not control. Just like her dating life. Just like her friendship with Oprah. Just like the interview question about Kobe Bryant. The world always claimed the right to judge the things that belonged to her, without asking her opinion. Then in May 2024, the thing Gayle King had never dared to dream happened. Sports Illustrated swimsuit, the world's most iconic magazine of physical beauty, chose her as one of 4 cover stars for its 60th anniversary issue, alongside Kate Upton, Hunter McGrady, and Chrissy Teigen. She was photographed by Usai on a Mexican beach, wearing a one-piece swimsuit by designer Mayajel Coronel, sitting by the pool, hand touching the water, smiling. But the most memorable moment was not the photograph. It was the morning of May 14, 2024, on CBS Mornings. Gayle was congratulating Kate Upton and Hunter McGrady on their SI swimsuit covers when the two models suddenly announced, "Gayle is on the cover too." She screamed, jumped out of her chair, eyes wide in disbelief. "I'm on the cover? They told me I was only inside. This is going to be on newsstands? Oh my God." Then she explained why this was almost unbelievable to her. "You're talking to someone whose grandmother once said Mother Nature was not as kind to you as to the other girls. I never saw myself that way. I still don't see myself that way. But when I look at that picture, I think I look beautiful." Nearly 6 decades after her grandmother's words, Gayle King stood before all of America and said, "I look really beautiful. Not beautiful despite her age, not beautiful for someone nearly 70. Beautiful, period." She requested no retouching, joked in classic Gayle King fashion that she had eaten a cheeseburger the night before the shoot, then added, "If you want to take out a couple of dents in the thighs, that's fine, but I really don't want any retouching." MJ Day, editor-in-chief of SI Swimsuit, wrote, "Gayle reminds us, not gently at all, that women are limitless and in control of their own destiny." This was not just a magazine cover. This was a 69-year-old black woman who had been betrayed by her husband, betrayed by her friend, threatened with death, called someone else's shadow for 3 decades, told by her grandmother she was not beautiful, standing before the world in a one-piece swimsuit and saying, "Look at me." And in a lifetime in which Gayle King spent most of her time doing everything for others, listening to others, being happy for others, holding everything together for others, this was one of the rare times she did something purely for herself. Not for the CBS audience, not for her children, not for Oprah, for herself. But even at this peak, when the whole world called her beautiful and she believed it for the first time, the question still followed her. After the lights went out, after the beach shoot in Mexico, after the applause on CBS Mornings, after William Bumpus's praise 34 years too late, she returned to her Manhattan penthouse. At the end of 2025, rumors swept the American media industry that Gayle King was about to leave CBS. Her contract was expiring, negotiations dragged on, and the press began writing early eulogies about her career at the network as if she had already gone. Then on March 4, 2026, Gayle King, 71, ended all speculation with a statement stamped with her characteristic humor. "The rumors of my departure are inaccurate and greatly exaggerated. CBS News is my longtime home, and I am committed to our mission. I am very excited to continue at CBS Mornings. As always, I am ready for new adventures here. It took a little time, but we got there, and now that we're here, I'm all in. It took a little time, but we got there." Those 8 words sound like they are about the CBS contract, but if you have followed the entire journey, you know they contain far more. 36 years from local station WFSB Hartford to the national anchor chair. 18 years called Oprah's best friend before being called by her own name. One talk show canceled in 1997 before CBS called in 2012. Never easy, never fast, but she always arrived where she needed to be. Yet there is one place Gayle King, at 71, still has not reached. More than 33 years after divorcing William Bumpus, she has not remarried, has no public partner, has not found the person she calls the great love. Not because she has not tried. She once accidentally dated a man and then discovered he still had a wife. He explained he was separated. She recognized the warning signs and cut it off immediately. Because Gayle King had lived through the night of June 24, 1990, and she knows exactly what deception looks like when it stands in front of her. In 2025 and 2026, she faced a bizarre version of loneliness. AI-generated fake images circulated online, showing her engaged and married to a wealthy businessman. She had to go on CBS Mornings to correct the record before millions of viewers. She laughed. And that laugh carried both humor and a bitterness only someone who has lived it can hear. The man who has captured her heart is a prominent figure in the business world. Where is he? I want to meet him. Show up. Co-anchor Nate Burleson joked, "So all you guys watching, take your shot, she's still single." The whole studio laughed. But beneath the laughter is the truth no one wants to say outright. She wants that AI man to exist for real. Gayle once shared on The Talk in 2019 what she looks for in a partner. Humor, intelligence, natural teeth, no smoking, height and depth of character equally important. She described the ideal date. I like a good restaurant, I like a movie, I like dinner and a movie and then talking about the movie. Simple to the point of heartbreak. The woman with a $50 million net worth, a $7 million Manhattan penthouse, a friendship with the wealthiest woman in media history wants dinner and a movie. She describes herself as alert and ready for love. She also told Vanity Fair, "If I meet the great love of my life, you'll hear it here first." She has said that sentence for years, across multiple interviews, and the announcement has never come. There is a very specific loneliness of the successful woman at 71. She has everything the world can measure: money, fame, awards, children and grandchildren, a 50-year friendship, but lacks the thing the world cannot measure. Someone who holds her hand when the lights go out. Someone who asks how her day was and actually wants to hear the answer. Someone who is there when CBS Mornings ends and she returns home at 10 in the morning while the rest of the world is still at work. Then in May 2026, 36 years after the night of betrayal, Gayle sat in front of Alex Cooper's microphone on the Call Her Daddy podcast and for the first time told the full detailed story. The towel, the alarm system, the line, "I thought we were friends," the reply, "I never liked you," the 3 years of feeling car hoods, the moment looking in the mirror and deciding to leave. Why now, after 36 years? Because she had finally healed enough to speak without pain. One day after the podcast episode aired, William Bumpus issued a second public statement through TMZ, 33 years after the divorce. "I am haunted by that choice. I am sorry for the pain I caused decades ago. I am forever grateful to Gayle." Gayle responded to TMZ in a voice anyone who has followed her for 20 years would recognize instantly. Yet this time it was different. "This happened so long ago. Both of us have healed. Both of us have moved on. The reason I can speak so openly is that so much time has passed. I am in a very good place, and so is he." The third time she said, "I'm fine," publicly. But this time, for the first time in the 20 years since she said it to Will Smith on the radio in 2006, it sounded like the truth. Not the self-persuasion of the first time, not the armor of the second time after the Kobe incident. This time, at 71, after 36 years, it sounded like a woman who had truly set the wound down, not because the wound had vanished, but because her hands had finally grown tired and she allowed herself to let go. Gayle King is not the flawless legend of American journalism, nor is she a tragic story of a woman betrayed and living alone for 3 decades. She is someone who has lived at both extremes of human experience, and it is precisely the distance between those two poles that creates the real person she is. She is the one who sat motionless before R. Kelly as he screamed and threatened, with a calm all of America called unshakable, and also the one who once lay in the garage at midnight, placing her hand on the car hood to check whether her husband had just slipped out somewhere and returned. She is the 2019 Time 100 cover of the most influential people in the world, and also the one who once accidentally dated a married man without knowing. She is the person Oprah Winfrey describes as the friend everyone deserves to have, and also the person whose friend looked her straight in the face on the floor of her own bedroom on the night of June 24, 1990, and said, "I never liked you." She is the happy grandmother of Luca and Grayson, the one who jumped for joy announcing their births on CBS, and also the one who returns alone every night to her Manhattan penthouse after the studio lights go out, remembering only the glorious moments. The Emmys, the $15 million contract, the Sports Illustrated cover, is to whitewash her story and make her less human. Conversely, remembering only the painful moments, the betrayal, the death threats, the 33 years alone is a profound injustice to the legacy she has built. That legacy does not sit in a trophy case. It does not reside in million-dollar contracts. It does not reside in the 50-year friendship with Oprah Winfrey, even though that friendship is one of the most extraordinary relationships in American media history. Gayle King's legacy lies elsewhere, in 3 places no award can measure. First, she changed the way interviews are conducted on American television. In an industry where sharpness usually equals cruelty and warmth usually equals weakness, Gayle King proved that you can ask the hardest question in the room without losing compassion, that you can make R. Kelly lose control with the gentlest voice, that real power on camera does not come from aggression but from calm. Second, she proved that standing beside does not mean standing behind. For nearly 5 decades, the world tried to shrink her into a supporting role in Oprah Winfrey's story, and she refused, not by leaving Oprah, but by becoming fully Gayle King right beside Oprah. You can be the best friend of the most famous woman on television and still be yourself. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, and Gayle King spent 40 years proving that to the world. Third and deepest, she showed that real strength is not never falling. She fell. She lay in the garage feeling car hoods. She went 2 nights without sleep from fear. She stood on the scale in front of the camera and called the number 172 pounds a crisis. She said, "I'm fine," while her hand still covered the scar. Gayle King's strength is not never falling. It is choosing to get up every morning at 4:30, while it is still dark, while all of America is still asleep, driving to the studio, sitting in the chair, letting them do her makeup, looking into the camera, and smiling, even if the night before she went home alone. Even if the night before she still had not received the call from the great love she has waited more than 30 years for. Even if the night before she was still Gayle King with every wound and every glory that name carries. And now, when you have walked this entire journey with her, look again at the warm smile every morning on CBS Mornings. That smile is not free. It was bought with the night of June 24, 1990, with 3 years of feeling car hoods, with a talk show canceled after 1 season, with 2 decades of being called a shadow, with death threats after the Kobe Bryant incident, with more than 30 years alone, with the grandmother's words she carried until she stood before youth-size camera on a Mexican beach at 69 and said she looked really beautiful. At 71, when someone asks whether Gayle King is fine, the question she has answered 3 times publicly over 20 years. This time, for the first time, the answer sounds like the truth. Not because life finally became easy, it never has been and perhaps never will be, but because she finally accepted that life does not have to be easy to be worth living. Tomorrow morning, the CBS studio lights will come on again while it is still dark, and Gayle King will be there again, because that is what she chooses. When you look back over Gayle King's entire journey, what is the first thing that comes to mind? The calm before Kelly, the warm smile every morning, the 2 children she raised alone, or more than 30 years still waiting for the great love. Share in the comments below and help us honor the woman who chose to get up every morning. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the next stories about extraordinary people the world has not fully told. Thank you for staying until the very last minute. See you in the next video.